Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome. My name is Andrea Seka. I'm the Chief Executive Officer here at St. Vincent Catholic Charities. Thank you all for coming today. You've likely heard the expression, it takes a village to raise a child. Adoption and foster care can be the best proof of that concept when done well. It takes work and a commitment to learning and growing. Above all, we remind the community how much love can come from becoming a family through foster care and adoption. This is a gift that has the power to transform entire communities into better, more loving, and mindful people. It's our honor we are hosting today's press conference, and fitting since November marks Adoption Awareness Month. We look forward to the thoughtful recommendations that the Bipartisan Adoption and Foster Care Task Force has to improve our child welfare services. It is now my pleasure to introduce Representative Mary Whiteford, Chair of the Adoption and Foster Care Task Force Committee.
Thank you, Andrea, and thanks for hosting us today. Let me pull up my notes. And I do appreciate everyone for being here today. This is amazing, almost standing room only. And I do appreciate the fact that you're coming so that we can draw attention to what I truly believe is a crisis of our generation. I'm State Representative Mary Whiteford, and I was honored to be appointed as the chair of the Bipartisan Adoption and Foster Care Task Force by Chairman Albert. On any given year, there are approximately 13,000 children in foster care in Michigan. Among those in foster care, over 3,000 children are awaiting adoption. Last year, just under 2,000 of those children found their forever homes with an adoptive family. The Michigan Department of Health and Human Services works with 56 private foster care agencies and 46 adoption agencies to deliver foster care and adoption services throughout our state. Many of those are here today. But our goal of 80% of children being adopted from foster care is remaining elusive. Every child needs and deserves a warm family and a loving home. And those that have adopted a child need and deserve our support and admiration. That's why we made the task force's mission to listen to people along the entire continuum of our child welfare system, partner with experienced and knowledgeable professionals to learn how our system is falling short, and find effective solutions to ensure every child has at least one champion and a safe, warm, and loving home by developing better, more effective systems to ensure that their voices are heard. Over the past 6 months, our task force has learned that our child welfare system could be better streamlined to make it more supportive for loving parents to open their homes to foster children. That children in our system need better access to quality health care and legal representation, and that caseworkers need more resources to do their jobs effectively. We implemented over half of our recommendations today into our current Health and Human Services budget. And I look forward to implementing the remainder of these recommendations that we found within this report. I want to thank the many stakeholders and experts who helped make this report possible and who are responsible for the positive change that will be made within our system as a result. And I personally want to thank the people that I love in my life who are former foster children who let me understand what it was like to be a child in a home that they know nobody, that's completely unfamiliar, and they're full of fear and the trauma that goes through that and goes with that person for the rest of their life. And if we can do this one thing and help every child to have somebody who loves them, who cares for them, and who will have their back, then we have done a job well done. And so I thank everybody for trying to do their part in this, and doing this together is the only way we will accomplish this for the children of our state. I now want to welcome my fellow task force member and colleague, Representative Rodney Wakeman.
Thank you, Chair Whiteford, and to the assembled here today. Good morning. I am Representative Rodney Wakeman from the 94th District in Saginaw County. I'm here today to talk briefly, very briefly, as both a member of the Bipartisan Adoption and Foster Task Force and chair of the House Committee on Families, Children, and Seniors. Today is a great day for Michigan and Michigan children and Michigan families. The groundwork that has been laid to get here has been significant. I applaud every member of the task force for your dedication and the many hours you set aside willingly to participate. This task force is another example of Michigan legislature working together to solve problems. I particularly wish to acknowledge Chair of the task force, Representative Mary Whiteford, for her very competent lead on this matter, her knowledge coupled with her steadfast desire to seek out meaningful opportunities for individuals to share their knowledge, expertise, and firsthand accounts in front of the task force provided all of us valuable information. My perspective on the work of this task force is very simple: to receive information from stakeholders and then take that information and find ways through legislative, administrative, and judicial reform to help create the best possible adoption and foster care system for Michigan residents. I will continue to look for opportunities to help facilitate these changes when presented to my committee. With that, I now would like to introduce my colleague as well, Phil Green.
Thank you, Representative. Thank you all for being here. I see many individuals, even from my district in the 84th District, which is the thumb of Michigan, are here today. Mahatma Gandhi stated, "The true measure of any society can be found in how it treats its most vulnerable members." Having a bachelor's degree and working with youth, it has been my passion to help the youth of today become the leaders of tomorrow. Literally, my life has been dedicated to educating, counseling, and mentoring the youth in our communities. It is unfortunate, but a reality that many of our young members of society have been deeply harmed by that society that they live in. The familial society has sometimes harmed these youths very severely. This past winter, when I was asked to serve on the task force, I not only eagerly accepted, but also began to surround myself both in district and out of district with other experts in the field who have dedicated their lives to serving this vulnerable population. In fact, I think the conversation went something like this: Representative Green, would you like to serve on the task force? Let me think about it, yes. It was not something I had to think about very long. Through this task force, we have found many exceptional people doing extraordinary work, making exorbitant sacrifices to help just one more child to have an exceptional, extraordinary life in spite of the circumstances they found themselves in. These people continue to go above and beyond even what they think they're capable of and provide as stable of an environment as possible. We have identified several instances where society has failed our next generation. Abuses abound: physical abuse, sexual abuse, substance abuse being amongst the most egregious. We must work to right these wrongs and fix these atrocities. We've also identified where we have some structural insufficiencies in our government infrastructure to deal with these problems. Some are financial insufficiencies, and some are structural bureaucratic insufficiencies. My commitment is that I and we will continue to fight for the futures of each and every one of these children. We will support the people who sacrifice dearly. We will endeavor to right the wrongs in our society that produce the abuses, and will work relentlessly to fix the insufficiencies identified. Thank you, Madam Chair Whiteford, for your leadership. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the awesome opportunity to serve my state. I would like to introduce a dear friend of mine, representative from Pontiac, Representative Brenda Carter.
Thank you, Representative Wakeman, and thank you all for coming today for this very important press conference. When I became a legislator, I came prepared to fight for our children, including the children that sometimes are forgotten. All across the state, there are thousands of children desperately waiting to be placed in a loving home. Michigan currently ranks 12th in our nation for the most children under state custody. As Representative Whiteford said, that's nearly 13,000 children. As legislators, we have a duty to make sure that we are doing everything in our power to help children transition into a safe, caring, forever home. That's why I am proud to be a part of this task force that researched and made recommendations to improve the structure of our foster care and adoption processes throughout this year. We engaged, interacted, and visited parents, children, and child welfare organizations to hear their thoughts about what we could do to help them. And we've come up with real, identifiable solutions to the problem Michigan children face. While I'm proud that we were able to come together as a bipartisan group and proud of all the recommendations that we've made, there still is a challenge ahead of us. We must now pass the legislation that help address the root causes of this issue, like expanding special health care needs access and investing in our foster children, our caseworkers, and child welfare homes. I know I am, and everyone here next to me, we're up to that challenge. I look forward to drafting legislation to help provide more loving, forever homes across this great state. And now I would want to introduce Janet Reynolds, Executive Director of the Michigan Federation of Children and Families. Janet.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much, Representative Carter, and for Representative Whiteford and all the esteemed task force members. Thank you, too, to Chairman Albert, who convened the task force, and Chairman Whiteford for your strong leadership, and for the commitment and dedication of all the task force members who have devoted just absolute countless hours in engaging with community stakeholders, professional and lay people, and most importantly, children and families themselves as experts for necessary changes, to make system changes that will benefit children and families in Michigan. The recommendations that you have put forward are extremely child and family centered, very sharp focus on strengthening infrastructures for children and families and all caregivers, and how we look at the whole community. That's extremely important, and Representative Whiteford, as you mentioned, a number of the recommendations have already been put into budget for fiscal year 22, which we are very appreciative for. There has been an adjustment to the administrative rate for foster care providers, which helps with critical staffing resources and services for children. There has been an adjustment to the adoption per diem that also puts into place more access to resources that are very important in achieving permanency for children who are free for adoption and their families, helping to decrease the number of disruptions or adoptions that would fall apart if it were not for the resources that were there. There are so many other recommendations that are very family-focused. And child-focused. Certainly one of those is the expansion of CASA throughout the state. CASA is one of the most true forms of advocacy for children. There is the investment in prevention and preservation services, being able to take advantage of 4E funds that are available through the Family First Prevention Services Act. And there is a strengthening of how we look at kin for children, fictive kin, and other kin relations, that certainly will result in more options for children as far as kin placements. We also are very appreciative for acknowledgement of elevating Michigan to a national leader in child welfare through the appointment of a bipartisan children's commission, which would provide the ongoing insight and perspective and recommendations for important system changes. So we're very appreciative to be part of this process. Thank you very much for your efforts. And it's now my pleasure to introduce the President and CEO of CASA of Michigan, Patty Sabin.
Thank you, Janet. Good morning. When I left the office today, I quick grabbed a mask, and I just determined it's a kid's mask. So, but it does its job. So anyway, thank you, Janet. I too, heartfelt thanks to the task force. I had the honor of speaking to you back in March about the Michigan Court-Appointed Special Advocate Program and the different issues that our children face today. And I know you worked diligently and spoke with many different people in many different disciplines during this very thoughtful process. So thank you. I'd also like to thank you for the $1 million state appropriation for our organization, especially you, State Representative Mary Whiteford. I know you really championed the cause, and I read the report, and it's very much appreciated. Our children deserve that voice. This allocation means that we'll be able to open new programs and support those in the 28 Michigan counties that we currently serve. Our expansion will help us reach the more than 13,000 children that currently are wards of the court. This task force has given new meaning to the phrase walking the talk, or more aptly put, putting your money where your mouth is. We know that healthy children become strong adults, and strong adults make healthier communities. There's no better investment in the state of Michigan than in our children, and thank you so much. I think we have, let's see, I'd like to introduce Tina Sentel, Program Manager for New Light Child and Family Institute.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Tina Sentel, and I am the Child Welfare Program Manager at New Light Child and Family Institute. I'm very excited to be here today with my private partners that are in the audience, with the Federation, and with Representative Mary Whiteford and the task force. On June 7th, New Light was given the honor of hosting Representative Whiteford and her team for what was supposed to be a presentation. However, it turned out to be a very meaningful and engaging conversation. And I can tell you from that conversation, we felt very heard. All of us at New Light felt very heard. Thank you for that. The recommendations given today are not only impactful in stabilizing beneficial services for our children and families, but to also provide more continuity to these services being delivered. The recommendations do not just affect foster care, but also our child caring institutions, making improvements in child welfare across the board. This is a huge task, Representative Whiteford, but I know that you and your team are up to the challenge by showing through engaging conversations, and sometimes very difficult but very meaningful conversations, what you will do and what is necessary to continue to improve child welfare for our Michigan families. I would also like to thank you and your team for everything that you have done to improve the services that we are able to offer to our children. I would like to introduce Ms. Stacy Bowens, Executive Director from Spectrum Human Services. Thank you, Tina.
Good morning, everyone. I can only echo the thanks to Chair Whiteford and the entire task force for your dedication and commitment to Michigan's children and families. We know we are in challenging times nowadays with our children and families, and they need all of the legislative support from the department, and support from our private agency partners to make our communities better. I want to just touch on a little bit what Tina said about our children, that if they can't be placed in safe, loving foster homes or adoptive homes, there are some children who are in need of our residential services that our private agency providers provide. We don't want children to grow up in residential, but as a part of the continuum of care for our children in Michigan, residential services that provide quality therapeutic care are needed for our children so we can successfully reintegrate them back into the communities and build stronger communities. So I'm grateful for that opportunity, that the recommendations in the task force report are encouraging to hear of the work that we can do as residential providers and as well as agencies that provide family preservation work. Our goal is to get them back into the communities with their families, and if not with their families, in loving and adoptive foster homes. So we look forward to the hard work that's to come, because I think, again, you hear this theme, we're all up to the challenge that's ahead of us. So thank you for your time today. Here's my other boss. Let me introduce no. She's a wonderful woman, and I have had the opportunity to develop a friendship with this great woman, Judy Wallach, CEO of Wolverine Human Services. She'll get me later.
That's all right. I want to say on behalf of Michigan's children, a thank you to the task force and the legislators, because it is what it's about. It is about our children in Michigan who deserve the best care and services and treatment that we can provide. Wolverine had the pleasure of hosting the task force for half a day, and I have to say, as a taxpayer, it was momentous to see your elected officials at work. And it made me proud that these people had been elected and cared, and their commitment to what they wanted to help do. I want to thank them for the 20% increase or rate adjustment to the foster care rate. It's significant for private agencies to be able to provide the very best services we can, and these children deserve. All of the recommendations in the report are only going to enhance what we're doing in Michigan already. And that is what we need to continue to do as a state. We don't need to be 12. We need to be 1 or 2. And so on behalf of all of the children and families in Michigan, we want to do our best service and treatment and care in this state. And I want to thank you again. And I get the pleasure of remembering to introduce Shannon Urbane, Executive Director of New Foster Care.
Thank you. Good morning. We would just like to echo the sentiments of thanking the task force, in particular Representative Whiteford, for your efforts on behalf of Michigan's children. We believe that children in foster care in Michigan are probably the most disadvantaged population, and it's critical that we make them a focus. And I think it's commendable that the task force is shining a light on this population. The task force report includes many really powerful recommendations that could have the potential to change the trajectory for Michigan's foster care system. We believe the recommendations, particularly supporting kinship care, will be particularly impactful because research has proven that you can lessen the trauma for children if they remain in their kin networks. I started my career in child welfare as a lawyer guardian ad litem and a parent's attorney, and so I also was very thankful to see recommendations relating to improvements in legal representation and training for lawyers. So we look forward to continuing our partnership with the task force to implement many of the recommendations that were made.
So to end, I'm going to start with imagine, if you will, you're 5 years old, and your normal may not be normal to everybody else, but it's still your normal. It's your bed, it's your clothes, it's your parents, even if they're a hot mess, but they're yours. And you are ripped away from everything that is normal for you, everything that in your mind is safe. And that is what we as task force members worked on and focused on this entire time. It's about those children in those dark spaces, the ones who are forgotten, the ones who are considered throwaway children, which we do not believe. But those are the kids who end up in human trafficking and are exploited and end up in prison and jail. Anecdotally, I heard up to 80% of individuals on death row were former foster kids. So this circles back. This is the crisis of our generation. We have an opportunity to have very specific recommendations to make things better, but I know I can't do it alone. The task force cannot. We need our partners all over the state to be those champions for these children, and we want to make it so that these children are parents, better parents, so that they can be productive in their communities and happy and self-sufficient, and that they can become better parents themselves. And I think this is a good way to start, but we've got a lot of work ahead of us. I do want to give a special thanks to Jared Rozicki. He's been our policy person, just pulled everything together for us. So thank you, Jared. And just one more final thanks. We spent countless hours listening to Supreme Court justices, to court administrators, to our CASA, special court-appointed special advocates, and to families and to the children who are now young adults and adults, and how the child welfare system impacted them. And I think we really have a great opportunity to do better. So thanks again, everybody. So I just wanted to see if there are any questions. Yes?
First, I'm Sherry Thomas Cloud, and I'm the CEO for Family and Children's Services in Kalamazoo. And my congratulations and thanks to the task force. This is one of the most positive things I've seen in many years. I spent 26 years with Department of Health and Human Services before I went into private nonprofit. And one of the things I particularly liked in here, you talked about access to prevention. And we really, everybody has talked about the impact on these kids, even doing a good thing, maybe some have to go in foster care, and we know that. But one of the things I just wanted to say, that when I was a foster care worker in 1980, there was a committee or group that talked about, at the time, foster care drift, and that was before the lawsuit. And it was about children of color being overrepresented in the system. And that continues to this day. They're overrepresented in the system, and they're not as haven't proven to be adopted at the same rate. And one of the things, part of the equation is access to community services and prevention. But the other part of that equation is we have to train and commit and value and incorporate into our very structure that we value these children and these families of color and educate ourselves. Because having access, we found, and I know that the state has started a work group probably a year or so ago around looking at why workers are not at the same rate referring families of color to these prevention services. And that is a big problem. So there has to be commitment from the highest level, Director Hertel on down, about educating themselves, incorporating into the culture that we're going to value, we're going to educate, and we're serious about making an impact on children and families of color in particular.
Thank you. Thank you for those comments. And just like I said, every single child needs to have a champion, no matter what walk of life that they come from. And so everything is very complicated. That's why we listened to dozens of people as we went through this journey. And I appreciate your input on that. Anybody else? And then anybody online? Okay. Well, thanks. Thanks again, guys. Have a lovely day, and God bless you and your families, and God bless all the children of Michigan.